All right, meat giant Tyson laying off 1,200 workers after closing its pork factory in Perry, Iowa, only later to announce 52,000 jobs for migrants.
The company's excuse: migrants are getting the jobs that Americans don't want. A human resources executive for the company telling Bloomberg the migrants have been, quote, very loyal. They've been uprooted, and what they want is stability. What they want is a sense of belonging.
Let's bring in Fox and Friends Weekend co-host Pete Hegseth. Pete, good to see you.
Yes.
But again, lower wages, taking American jobs. This was the reason why Democrats were opposed to illegal immigration 10, 15, 25 years ago. But here it plays out. This costs Americans a livelihood.
That's true. It was also the reason why the Chamber of Commerce crowd of the Republican Party was so resistant to Donald Trump back in 2015, 2016, dependent on importing cheap labor. He said, we're going to build that wall. We're going to stop this. I'm going to put Americans first. Wages will rise as a result. And now you've got an inversion of that with the Democrat Party saying, come on in. And then we've heard glimpses of it, right? When Nancy Pelosi said, who else is going to pick our crops, right? I mean, that's their mindset. And the businesses are happy to do it when there's no e-verifier, there's no consequences. And so cheaper labor for this business to produce a product. And it's not an easy job. You know, people that do those jobs, they're dirty, they're tough, but Americans should have the first shot, and they should have a good shot at a good wage.
And it's so dismissive. The language that they use, that Americans don't want these jobs. Really?
Americans had these jobs.
Right.
And they lost them.
Correct.
Exactly.
And if you thought about paying, if Americans are doing the jobs, they're going to raise the wages for the jobs, too. That's all good for everybody.
Yeah.
Shifting gears now to this, the Biden administration is sending an additional $25 million to Haiti as 80% of Port-au-Prince is now under control of violent criminal gangs. And now the White House is actively discussing using the U.S. naval base in Guantanamo Bay to process migrants if Haitian refugees flee to the U.S. en masse. Pete, what do you make of this? Because again, you could just pick apart the refugee part of how many more many more people are we going to?
Correct. I mean, I served there. If we want to use it for that, we can. There's plenty of space. They've done it in the past. Yes, Gitmo is known in the popular conscience for the detention center after 9/11, but it's long been a place where they've held folks that are fleeing via sea. That was me as a young platoon leader in 2004 at Guantanamo Bay for a year. Ultimately, you know what they did with people that landed ashore or we interdicted with naval ships? They were repatriated. You know what repatriation means? Sent back to your country. That's the difference here. Do you think the Biden administration is going to repatriate, or does Gitmo become a giant processing center by which they easily then transport them to the United States? So Gitmo would work great. Depends on how they plan to use it.
And processes in air quotes because they don't really vet these people very well at all.
So
when I read this next story, I immediately thought of you. Rachel and I were going to do this on a podcast. I'm like, no, we shouldn't do it unless we have someone like Pete to talk about it. So the words duty, honor, country have long inspired West Point cadets, instilling deep sentiments of service and patriotism. But the military academy has decided to drop the motto from their mission statement, instead replacing it with the words Army values. What the hell does Army values mean, Pete?
Well, there are 7 Army values, which we learn in the Army.
Can they change over time, though?
Loyalty, duty, respect, self-service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. Can they change? Sure. Are they more nebulous when you put it in there as Army values? What could the Army's values be 10 years from now? They could be different than today. No doubt. I've talked to a lot of West Pointers about this. So West Point's saying, we didn't change the motto. So it's still duty, honor, country in the motto. We just took duty, honor, country out of our mission statement and said we're going to turn it into the Army value. You see, West Point was supposed to have the highest standards. So what higher can you get than duty, honor, country? I mean, you throw God in there, but duty, honor, country is the motto, and it's all the progressive stuff that's made its way into the curriculum there at West Point. And they've used West Point because that's where you craft the officers that craft the policy of the future. And so DEI is deep inside the curriculum there at the civilian professors are just like civilian professors at other universities. West Point's got a lot of problems, and every once in a while we get a moment like this where they do something so egregious like removing duty, honor, country. You go, what else is happening under the tent there? And there's a lot, and it's bad.
I wanted to make sure I got this right. Remember when Army General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, said, I want to understand white rage. it goes back to what you're talking
It's
about.
such
And he
a
had to
sham.
back away from that comment.
Millie's been was a sham for a long time. He's now been replaced by CQ Brown. But he was yelling about, we need to rename the bases. Hey, Mark Milley, were they racist when you were the commander at that base? Because you were there for decades ago and it wasn't a problem. So they were kowtowing to politicians for a long time.
Do you want to do that?
Go ahead.
Let them eat snake. The left's anti-meat agenda slithering out of control. A new study suggesting turning to Burmese pythons as an alternative, sustainable source of meat. How does this sound to Pete? We know you love some snakes. Watch.
Pete's really afraid of snakks.
I don't like
Tell us
snakes at
about
all.
these snakes.
Whoa.
Hey, Pete, you should watch fun.
All these things are visiting from my.
We just doing this story because we wanted to play that video of
Thank you, guys.
you.
The least masculine moment I've had. I don't like snakes, but I'll tell
we
you
saw
this.
that.
But I tell you, if they taste good, I'm in. I don't want them all up in my face, and I don't know how to. I didn't grow up dealing with them. You've said you're more comfortable with them, catching them. I'd like to teach my boys to be able to catch snakes, but I don't think that means they're going to be a snake farmer. Can you imagine being a snake farmer?
No.
How many do you have? Where do you hold them? What if one gets loose? It's not like the cow that was up our driveway 2 weeks ago that the neighbor said, "Where's my cow?" They came and got him. Burmese python gets loose. What do you do?
This is garbage. This study was garbage.
sure it is.
I read it. People eat rattlesnake, fried rattlesnake. You can go anywhere in the
As a
Southwest.
novelty, they don't use it as a staple.
No, it's not a staple. But again, these climate nuts are going to turn to Asia for sustainable meat sources. They eat dogs. People farm dogs for meat. They just banned dog farming in South Korea. Oh, and that doesn't go into effect till 3 years from now.
Listen, but snake might taste good.
Yeah.
But we want to take away my chicken and my beef and replace it with snake. Now I got a problem because
That's it.
took away my choice.
That's 100% right. But in the meantime, snakes on a plate. Let's do it.
Go catch them in your backyard.
No,
Not doing it.
Hey, you want to catch some Burmese pythons? You go down there in the Everglades. They got big old problems because people dump their pets in the Everglades, and they're no natural predators, so they've grown. They're like 100 pounds and 19
Out of
feet
control.
long.
I'm good. Pete Hegseth, thank you so much
Good
for
to
being
see you
here.
guys.
Good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Fox and Friends tomorrow morning.
We'll see you in the
My wife.
morning.